Retro Gaming Radio. I'm Shane Armonroe, your host. Comprehensive online source. Welcome to Retro Gaming Radio. Welcome to Retro Gaming Radio. Comprehensive online. Welcome to Retro. I'm Shane Armonroe, your host. Welcome to the program. Hi folks, welcome to the February 2002 edition of Retro Gaming Radio. This is Shane Armonroe, your host. Glad to have you. This is the first produced episode of Retro Gaming Radio. Brian Smith, longtime friend, you may know him as Kid Hype from IRC. He does a lot of cool music mixes and all sorts of stuff. He's written video games. The guy's a great guy, and he's joining the Retro Gaming Radio team to act as producer. Brian, what can you say? Welcome to Retro Gaming Radio.
Thanks for that cool intro, Shane.
Brian, give the good folks a little background about yourself. Let them know why you're interested in being with part of the Retro Gaming Radio team and what you're going to bring to the show.
Well, what can I say? I'm a diehard classic gaming fan with over 20 years of gaming experience, and I'm hoping my classic gaming experience will help further the show to new heights in 2002. I want everybody to look forward to a lot of interviews, and as always, we are open to suggestions, requests, and criticisms. Remember, this is for you, the listener, so let yourself be heard. So you need to email us at retromail@retrogamingradio.com. I look forward to hearing from you guys. Thanks.
Well, Brian, we're all looking forward to working with you. I'm looking forward to working with you, and I'm sure that the listeners will definitely see an impact and the quality that you bring to the show. It's great to have you aboard. So welcome to Brian. It's very exciting having a producer to handle a lot of the day-to-day stuff that I don't really have a chance to get to and that often ends up delaying the show. So hats off to Brian. He'll be attending CGE with me this year. Hopefully, all things working out the way they should. We should have a booth. Ourselves and Dark Unicorn Productions, which is my shareware programming group, will share a booth. Not only will we be having the radio show available for you to listen to back episodes while you're there, we're going to be running interviews, hopefully constantly, through the show, both days, as well as selling some of our cool Dark Unicorn games at the booth. So we hope to see you there. Once we have a booth number, of course, it'll go up on the Retro Gaming Radio site, so you guys can kind of plan your trip and come over and see us. We'd really like to meet you guys. We've met a lot of our listeners in the past, and it's always been a fun thing. We can get some soundbite comments from everybody, and we'll just have a nice little CGE wrap-up show once we're back from there. So welcome, Brian. Thanks for taking over the job of producing the show. Those of you obviously listening to the show know that our site has undergone a change. With the inclusion of all of the shows archived in MP3 format, we decided it was time for a facelift, something new, fresh for the year 2002. Let you guys know we're real serious about running this show. So the new site has a lot of nice little features to it, and the archives page is something I'm especially proud of. It makes it really easy for you to find the shows you're looking for and want to hear. So if you haven't been to the archives yet, you might want to go take a look. I think you'll like it a lot. We certainly do. And again, we're just trying to get some better service here for you guys. There's been a couple of questions already. How do I get the original shows? The original shows that were in various formats, mostly real player format. There were a couple of QuickTime episodes. There was a couple of Flash episodes as we were experimenting with different technologies. All of these shows, plus the entire MP3 archive, plus a whole bunch of solid gold goodies, to quote Daffy Duck, they're all available on the Buy the CD-ROM edition off the page. It's $15. You can pay via PayPal. You can snail mail it. We'll send you a nice CD with a little jewel case and insert, the whole bit. Just a quick rundown what's on there. There's a nice little interface for playing the earlier shows. It's all in Flash, and it should work fine for you Mac folks out there. I can't attest because I can't test it, but to be sure, the Mac should have no problems playing the files. I mean, they're all media files, so you'll be at least able to listen to the shows and watch the shows. All of those are available on the CD-ROM. We also throw in some really nice little goodies, namely 3 audio tracks. The Dragon's Lair attract screens, which is really, or the attract music, this is, Dragon's Lair, your fantasy adventure, blah, blah, blah. That's all there right from the original arcade machine that you can listen to in your CD player. And the good folks over at BucknerGarcia.com hooked us up with a nice Pac-Man Fever remix thingy-mabobber, little music track for you, and we put that on the disc too that you can play in your CD player. So it's a good deal, good value, $15. That basically covers the CD, the jewel case, cost of printing, the time it takes to duplicate it and mail to you, folks. We're not like cleaning up on this sort of thing. If we did, we'd be charging $40 like Disney. Anyway, so that's the answer to that question. How do I get the video episodes? That's how you get them. I would like to take a minute. This is sort of a new segment of the show we want to experiment with. Actually taking a letter that one of you great listeners have written us, and we do get a lot of them, folks, believe it or not. And I'd like to read to you what this guy wrote. Every episode, I'm going to take one of your letters and read it aloud, just because it's very cool to hear what people have to say. And I think that you would think it was cool to hear what people have to say. This comes from Scott in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm 34 years old and flat out refuse to leave the 80s and come to 2002. I started way back in 1979 with an Atari 400 and a 410 cassette drive. Since then, I've had two 800s, an 800XL, 520 ST, 520 STFM, Mega ST2, C64C, two Amiga 500s, and countless PCs. My kind of guy. Console-wise, I've had a boatload of 2600s and television with voice, Atom, PlayStation, Atari 7800, and a few more I'm sure I'm forgetting. As you can probably guess, I'm a huge emulation nut. I started out way before most with emulation when I was emulating a Mac on the 520 ST with a product called Magic Sack. I was using a product called Shapeshifter on the Amiga to emulate the Mac. That's my little editorial commentary. There was also a software PC emulator. It was pretty slow, but using an ST to run Procom and PC File on the PC was awesome. I also go back to MAME when it was a multi-pack emulator and wish we would have seen more than two versions of RetroCade. I'm also a classic arcade lover, as you probably already guessed. Being that I live in a two-bedroom apartment, I've not been able to start a collection yet. However, my walls are loaded with marquees. I'm a tech support and customer service rep for a large computer company in Cleveland, Micropro. Okay, enough about me. I want to talk about you. I've been a very big fan of yours since way back. Yes, I remember Insert Coin. I love Retro Radio. Even though I downloaded the entire library, I'll be getting a CD this year at CGE from you. I just wanted to let you know I love Retro Radio and I like the way you give out your opinions. I agree pretty much with everything you say. When you first removed MAME from your page, I was a little disappointed, but I see why you did it. I think the MAME team should stop trying to emulate the newer games and concentrate on the ones that we already have. The sound in Asteroids is terrible, and version 0.57 has a lot of bugs with classics that have worked for a long time. Asteroids Deluxe has a Battlezone backdrop. Battlezone doesn't have any. Donkey Kong repeats sounds over and over again, and I'm sure there are more. Okay, enough of my bitching. I get sidetracked easily. I just wanted to say thank you for Retro Radio, and please keep new versions coming. I know it's a lot of work, but trust me, your work is really appreciated. I just hope that MonroeWorld.com does not go the way of classic gaming repository Jose Q's, EmuViews, and a lot of others. Yes, I agree the snot-nosed Super Nintendo generation has really damaged the emulation scene, but please don't let them bastards bother you. Let's keep classic gaming alive. I'm sure you've had thoughts of leaving the scene, but there is ever a question in your mind if anybody cares anymore. You can rest assured I really appreciate the work you do and the time and dedication you put into your work. Sincerely, Scotty. Well, Scotty, you are the man. Great letters. I get letters like this all the time, and it's really hard to pick one out from the group and say, this is the one I want to feature on the show. This guy, gives a lot of his background, and he says a lot of where he came from and where he hails from, and, the kind of guys that open up like this, and you make a connection with them, and this is the sort of thing that you'll see a lot at CG, I think, when we get to actually meet in person, and we can shake hands and talk about the good old days. You can tell me how hard those levels were in Lode Runner you used to make. That's what this classic scene's all about. It's not about free games via emulation or anything like that. It's almost a fraternity, a brotherhood of people with similar likes and beliefs and tastes getting together and playing games that are cool. Well, thank you, Scotty, for being our caller of the month, if you will. It was great to have you sort of on the show. Okay, let's get on to an editorial commentary here. I know this is what you people listen for, so I got to make sure I deliver you the goods. I want to take you down the street, down the highway, to your local mall. Go in by the food court, and you'll find an arcade there. Now, it used to be a cool arcade, but now it's more and more skee-ball, more and more crane and hook games. And while there's still an arcade section, you'll find in the back, right next to LA Machine Guns, House of the Dead 2, what are some of the other hot games that are out there now? Next to that skateboard simulator and the police trainer 911, you'll see a couple of cabinets in the back corner. The light's not very good back there, but I know you can still see them. Usually there's 2 or 3 people gathered around them still, all the time for some reason. While LA Machine Gunners sits empty, these 3 cabinets always have somebody playing on them. So you wander on over there, and you take a look. And what do you think the games are? Well, I'll tell you what they are in my arcade. There's a Ms. Pac-Man machine and an old converted Pac-Man cabinet. There's a Tempest machine. Yeah, some of the vector lines aren't looking so good, but it's still serviceable. Then, of course, right next to it's good old Galaga. Nasty, board-breaking, money to repair all the time Galaga. But it's running, and it's still running good. And yeah, most of the time you'll see 330-something-ish people back there plunking quarters down, playing Galaga for 4 or 5 hours before they go to work. You know? But sometimes you look back there and you see that occasional pup back there playing Tempest. He can barely see the screen. The really loud noise and the flashing lights that would put most epileptics down. Well, they're down there playing it. Does your heart good. Now, I mention this because I want to talk to you about remakes. Remakes are something that can either be done very, very well or done very, very poorly. Most companies, and a lot of companies, are getting into remakes, folks. I mean, the more you start looking, everything's a remake, sequel, part 2, deluxe, platinum, whatever, of an original game. For example, look at 2 of the hot first-person shooters now, right, for the PC. Medal of Honor, which is a PlayStation game, and which I'm sorry to report the PC version is nothing at all like, and Return to Castle Wolfenstein, which, of course, Castle Wolfenstein hails back to one of the first 3D games of all time. But aside from Medal of Honor, Wolfenstein didn't promise to be like the original. And I guess really Medal of Honor didn't either. They call it Allied Assault, so you're supposed to assume that it's like a follow-up mission, so you're not looking for a PC port of the PlayStation game, which is too bad, because I like the PlayStation game a lot. But what about remakes that are authorized remakes right from the company that owns the property? And you know what? The remakes turn out to be nothing more than a completely different game, using the name of a classic game, trying to tag into the market that game owns. I'm going to give you a prime example. Galaga. Hasbro released a version of Galaga last year. Now what I feel happened is somebody wrote a game that kind of had a couple of elements of Galaga in it. But let's face it, folks, Galaga on the PC doesn't even look like Galaga. It doesn't even play like it. Doesn't even feel like Galaga. Yet I think somebody made this game at Hasbro and said, hey, what should I call this thing? Hey, we got this whole line of classic gaming titles that we own. That's kind of like Galaga, isn't it? Neither one of these guys have ever played Galaga. They just look at it on a list of paper. Yeah, this is like Galaga. Let's call it Galaga. So they released it as Galaga. And I don't know about you folks, but I was pretty disappointed. I mean, it doesn't look anything like Galaga. It doesn't even play like Galaga. So enter the age of piss-poor modern remakes. And there are a lot of them, folks. I mean, they are all over the place. Now, I want to delineate between what a remake is and a sequel is. I don't mind sequels as long as they are properly promoted as such. For example, let me give you an example of one that's been done right. Pac-Man 20th Anniversary Edition on the PlayStation. It is not Pac-Man, folks. I mean, it's more like maybe Pac-Land, if you want to get technical. It's not really Pac-Man. But you know what, though? they've managed to capture an essence about the game. There's even times when you're put into a scenario where you're playing like an original Pac-Man maze. They also have a classic 3D-ish mode to sort of give you the feel of the original Pac-Man. I believe they call it Classic Quest or something like that. But you can actually play more or less an original game of Pac-Man using this new 3D engine that they put together. Now, as a sequel goes, this is really good. And the reason I say that is there's a feeling about it. The sound effects are there. The things you've gotten used to hearing are there. The general runabout play, I mean, there's still ghosts, there's still dots for you to eat, there's still power-ups, yet there's puzzles and stuff too. Now, my wife's a diehard classic Pac-Man nut, and she'd never tolerate something that stomped all over the Pac-Man property. And I'll tell you what, she loves Pac-Man 20th Anniversary Edition. I love Pac-Man 20th Anniversary Edition, and you guys know me, I'm a purist. There's the difference between taking a property and trying to knock it off is different than trying to take the property a step further and, I don't know, expand on it without ruining it. And that's very hard to do. I mean, it's not like you can pop out a remake and expect it to be good. It's an art form to make a game and remake it. There have been a lot of remakes, folks, that frankly have just brutally failed. Prince of Persia in 3D. No, that was like every other licensed knockoff, like The Mummy or any of these other Tomb Raider-ish sort of games. That had nothing to do with Prince of Persia. Come on, Prince of Persia was awesome. And you could have made Prince of Persia totally stomp butt if you'd have stuck to the original game and improved the graphics and sound a little bit. Improve the controls a little bit too. There are tons of different titles. Most of them, honestly, have been the Atari remake titles from Hasbro. Centipede, Frogger. Now, Frogger 2 was a little bit better than the original Frogger, the remake for Frogger 2. It felt a little more like the old school days. Add a little bit of adventure element to it. The problem with remakes nowadays is they fall victim to the standard, what I call the Disney machine theory. You know how Disney likes to take and basically every Disney cartoon is the same. You take an original classic that nobody knows Disney doesn't own, right? Run it through this machine, which basically does a couple of things. It adds songs where there should never be any songs, usually by somebody other than the artist or usually other than the actor that's providing the voice for the original character. I don't know about you guys, but that pisses me off. Right? So you have a song that sounds with a voice that's totally different than the guy that's actually talking the voice. What's up with that? Why don't you hire somebody that can sing and act? Come on, it can't be that hard. Right? And then throw in a couple of characters that were never in the original story for comic relief. Right? Have you noticed that? They always come in pairs. They got to have a slapstick pair to kind of edge off each show. And then you stamp the name Disney DVD on it or whatever. And, that out comes from the Disney machine, another Disney classic. Anyway, remakes follow this same suit. Basically, take a classic game that everybody knows and loves. Galaga, Pac-Man, Ms. Pac-Man, Centipede, Tempest, whatever. Take a classic. First thing you got to do is put it in 3D. I don't know why people don't think the 2D games don't sell, but you got to put it in 3D, so we've got to change the perspective. That's the first mistake. You change your perspective, you change almost the entire game. But some of them try. They try to keep the perspective similar in 3D. Throw in a totally 21st century storyline. Try to give it a plot and a theme. Pac-Man didn't have a plot, folks. They tried to do it like with the cartoons and stuff. There ain't no plot. You're a little yellow pizza with a slice taken out, running around a maze, eating dots, getting energizers, and eating ghosts. You don't have to make a book out of this, folks. People play this stuff without, having a storyline behind it. Add some full motion video intro, put a whole bunch of options in there that nobody ever needs, and you spit out a modern remake of a classic that basically obliterates the crap out of it. at least occasionally these remakes throw in the original classic emulated version of the game, or simulated emulated version of the game, which, believe it or not, is what most people I know buy the game for, just so they can say, I own a legal copy of Dig Dug. What the hell is up with Dig Dug while we're on the topic? I looked at that new Dig Dug. What in the hell were they thinking? I mean, you just got to try it. Go see if there's a demo or something you can look at. I saw it at a friend's house. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't even know how they could have even thought of putting Dig Dug on there. I don't know. You have to see that one for yourself. I'm not going to go into a total rant and rage about that. Suffice to say, folks, that those games sitting in that arcade at your mall, the Galaga, the Pac-Man, the Tempest, those games are there for a reason. They're timeless. They're timeless because they're still fun 20 years later. They don't need multi-bump map, pixel-shaded, Gerard fog, multicolored lighting crap. They're fun. People go back and play them because they're fun. There's a challenge behind them. There's a definitive line of gameplay. It works, people. That's all I can tell you. It works. If you're going to remake a game, do me a favor. If you know somebody's going to remake a game, tell them to do me a favor. Don't monkey with the gameplay, folks. Take the game, port it exactly as it is, reskin it, re-audio it. You can add some effects if you want. You can add some nice little transparency effects, some alpha, some alpha channel stuff. You can do that. Don't monkey with the gameplay. And if you're going to monkey with it, give us an option to turn on the classic mode, where we don't have to deal with Super Whammadine Pac-Man Ghost. We just want to play it the way it was. Yeah, we want better graphics. Yeah, we want better sound. Yeah, we want better controls. Sure, hook us up. But leave the gameplay alone. Galaga Destination Earth isn't even in the bargain bin shelf anymore. It's gone. Galaga in the arcade is still there. Something to consider. Okay, that's enough of the editorial ranting for this episode. I want to move on to a quick product review of Mad Dog McCree.
It's in the air. It's an ill wind that blows no good. Mad Dog McCree and his band of cutthroats are riding into town. Folks here plumb scared to death. Town's deserted. Even a tumbleweed doesn't dare blow across the streets today. Because these hombres are mean, vicious, quick with a gun. Sure, we got a sheriff. What we need's a gunslinger. You handle yourself, Pilgrim.
Now, there's not as much to review in this game, folks. Either you've seen the game or you haven't. Let me give you just a little bit of background what Mad Dog McCree was. After the big boom of Laserdisc games, Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, Thayer's Quest, all of the ones that people really remember, Cliffhanger, there came a new generation of games from a little-known company that is well-known now, America Laser Games. These guys came up with a whole bunch of interactive shooter games where basically you would actually have a real gun, well, not a real gun, but a gun you could pick up off the game. This is a long time before Lethal Enforcers, folks. You'd pick this gun up and you'd shoot at the screen. And it would, it'd use just any other light pistol sort of thing. If you shot the bad guy, he'd fall over. If not, you were dead. And using the Laserdisc technology, believe it or not, this worked out really good, really good. The seek times and stuff like that plagued the early Laserdisc games were worked out. It was a pretty seamless bit. Now, these guys went totally freaky nuts once they started selling these games. The first one that I know of, anyway, was Mad Dog McCree, which is why Digital Leisure probably decided to release this one first. They came out with tons more later on. Things like Space Pirate. There were some really, I'll tell you what, these were some really cool games. Okay, I'm not going to lie to you. The acting a little bit is kind of, magoo. But for the most part, the people do a good job. And the interactivity was always pretty good. The nice thing about these sort of games is they were very non-linear. Well, okay, not very non-linear. They were more non-linear than, say, Dragon's Lair or Space Ace. But let's try to focus on Mad Dog McCree for this review. Now I'm going to read you the back of the CD here. Again, this is your your standard digital leisure release. They release a DVD-ROM edition and a DVD video edition. I'm going to read you the back of this so you kind of get a feeling here. That low-down, dirty sidewinder Mad Dog McCree and his band of cutthroats have ridden into town, kidnapped the mayor and his daughter, and taken them to his hideout. These hombres are mean and vicious. What this town needs is a gunslinger to spray a little lead in harm's way. Only the best shooters will meet Mad Dog McCree in the final showdown. Just be sure your Colt 45 6-shooter's loaded. Alright, that's my little Old West impression there for you. Features include first time ever release for DVD, which is true, incredible video quality, and you know what? I'll tell you what. It looks better than the arcade does, folks. I mean, I just saw a machine down at this local place called Rawhide here out by Scottsdale near Phoenix. I'll tell you what, this DVD looks a whole lot better than their machine does. Real motion picture action, of course, and use your controller to aim and fire. We're going to get in on that in just a minute. The good news is the bullet points, folks, are all nice and filled on the back of this guy, and every one of them are true. It comes with your standard little inset for the DVD case. Gives you some ideas on how the controls work, how to pause the game, how to play, and some hints. So it's a your nice little release. So what about the game itself? Let's talk about that. Mad Dog McCree was a gun shooting game. You had a light pistol, and the guys would pop up from various locations. Most of the time it was fairly linear, though. As the storyline unfolded, you knew where the next guy was going to pop up. A lot like Lethal Enforcers. Your gun's already trained to the area where the next guy's going to pop up after you've played it a while. Mad Dog McCree is no different. You can do the scenes non-linearly. In other words, once you've completed the first couple of scenes with the sheriff there, I don't know, he wasn't the sheriff. I guess he was more like, the old drunk by the saloon. Anyway, he says, here's where the keys are to get the sheriff out of jail. Right, so he's not the sheriff. Here's the keys to, the bad guys got it in the saloon. So you can go to the saloon and take him on and try to get the keys. So there is some sort of a storyline progression in the game, which, again, since it's non-linear, you don't have to go to the saloon. You can go to the bank or, two other different locations. There's a total of 4 at the beginning. And so you can play the game kind of non-linearly just to kind of, flex your muscles. And so that's a nice feature for those of you who don't really like the Dragon's Lair Space Ace stuff that are kind of linear. So how does the shooting thing work? I know that's probably the crux. How the hell do you make a shooting game without a gun, without a mouse, without some sort of an analog control? How the heck do you manage to shoot this gun? Well, I'll be honest with you. There's crosshairs on the screen, and you move them with the DVD remote. And they move, I don't know, I'd say maybe 20 or 30 pixels each turn. Every time you push, right, left, up, or down. Now, you're probably thinking, oh my God, that's got to be impossible. And it's not. It's not, folks. It's challenging. Yeah, that's it. That's the ticket. It's just challenging. Actually, they do a good job of spacing the sights out so that, you end up on the guy. You don't end up just to the right, just to the left, just above, just below. You actually end up on the guy. So it's more a matter of memorization and getting your pointer over there quick enough to be able to pop the guy. There are times when it gets rather intense, believe it or not. When you go to get the keys from the bad guy, you'll play the scene a few times. Let's just put it that way. But there's sort of a different feel to it than the original, Dragon's Lair Space Ace kind of games. For people who are more into the interactivity and the pure gameplay part of it, of video gaming, then Mad Dog McCree is definitely a better choice than Space Ace or Dragon's Lair. People like me who are, basically Don Bluth whores, we're into Space Ace and Dragon's Lair for the animation. I don't want to be caught saying cartooning, I'll get hung. For the animation, the story, the characters, and just Bluth's involvement, We're just perfectly happy to put the DVD in and hit watch and just watch the game from front to back. For those of you who are a little more interactive and who want a little bit more bang for your play buck, Mad Dog McCree is probably a much better solution for you. Again, as I said before, the video quality is just stunning. I've never seen the game look as good as it does on DVD. The play is, again, a little challenging, and you'll have to get used to the concept of moving, pointing, and shooting. But honestly, folks, it doesn't take you very long to get into it, and you'll find yourself, playing it over and over again. You're going, man, that sounds repetitive. Well, yeah, any game where there's memorization, and, well, Lethal Enforcers was like that. I say that because Lethal Enforcers was one of the premier gun games. So many, when you think about an early shooting game, what pops in your mind is Lethal Enforcers. Those are the same scenes. You just memorized where they were. You memorized where the good people came out. And Mad Dog McCree has the same thing. You don't want to shoot the civilians. So, the same idea. Anyway, Mad Dog McCree, digitalleisure.com. Very nice package. It's very well put together, like every other Digital Leisure package that I've reviewed. You're worried about the gun. You're either gonna get used to it, or you're just gonna hate it. And I can't make that decision for you. I got used to it. I got to the point where I could move around pretty good. And there are times when there's no way you can make it unless you know that guy's gonna pop out. If you wait until you see the guy and start moving, you won't make it. Fortunately, there's not a lot of randomness that I've seen. There are a couple of scenes, according to the instructions, that there are random guys coming out. In which case, take the standard approach, keep your pointer centered as much as you can to give you the best possible run at each guy. I thought it was a lot of fun. And I'm not usually into the shooting kind of games. I thought it was a good time. It's amazing that they managed to pull this off, again, with a DVD controller, and I do think that there are some hesitation times, not in the original game, designed to make that moving of the pointer easier for you. There seems to be times when, the gunfighter will draw, and you've got maybe an extra second to react than you may have had in the original game. But it's all cool. It's not something that will bother you. Even if you're a purist of the game, I don't think it'll bother you, because it molds properly in with the game. It's not something you notice. It's something you're thankful for. So again, Mad Dog McCree, digitalleisure.com. It's a nice little title. If you are into that whole series of games from American Laserdisc games, this is the product you want to start looking at. Again, they have a DVD and DVD-ROM edition. I don't know how the DVD-ROM edition plays. Maybe you play it with the mouse. That would be cool. But the DVD video edition, which is what this review is, use your DVD remote. Anyway, folks, I recommend Mad Dog McCree, Digital Leisure. It's got the Shane seal of approval.
You spray a little lead in harm's way, that'd be tricky. But we'd be forever beholden to you. We're simple folk. Oh, but the mayor's daughter, you lay your eyes on her, you see what I mean. She'd be worth taking a chance for.
And now for something we hope you really like. I don't do a very good Rocky and Bullwinkle, sorry. Normally we don't review hardware per se on this show, simply because, hardware's not something you really want to look at. But I want to kind of paint you a little picture here and talk about a device that I feel is worthy of the Retro Gaming Radio audience. How many times have you played MAME with the keyboard? How many times have you played Robotron in MAME on a keyboard? Worse yet, how many times have you played Robotron with a Microsoft Sidewinder pad? Most people who really get into games like Robotron and Black Widow or Smash TV, they end up picking up one of the 2 joystick control sticks. Stick It, Hot Rod, what's the new one? X-Arcade, right? They pick up something like this because they're diehard fans of the game. And, there's certain games you just can't play with a keyboard. And let's face it, a lot of games are uncomfortable playing with the keyboard. Unless, of course, they're modern games. Modern games are mouse-keyboard combos, mouse-keyboard combos, mouse-keyboard combos. It's actually kind of unusual to see, in most people's houses, a PC controller. Like, unless they're in flight games or driving games, you see flight yokes and wheels. But how often do you see gamepads? How often do you see joysticks, per se? You know, things you'd play Street Fighter with, or things you'd play Robotron with. Not very often. Not very often, which I think is kind of sad. You know, to me, video games is joystick and button. You know, it always has been. But today's modern games, of course, which, if you listen to my last show, you know all about how I feel about modern games. It's all keyboard and mouse. It's a whole new control methodology. Can't say I'm real pleased with it either. But, you know, because of the fact that PC controllers are either one, way the hell too expensive. I ain't paying $80 for a gamepad, folks. Not happening. Either they're way too expensive, or, even worse yet, these things have drivers, background programs, configuration utilities. I mean, I remember the last Sidewinder that I got. You had to run a program resident to make the thing work. You had to install special drivers. I mean, if I wanted a crappy installed system with all sorts of software I didn't want on it, I'd get a compact. But since I don't want a compact, I don't want a controller that's going to fill my system up with a bunch of worthless drivers, configuration tweaking utilities, yada, 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 which seems to be what all the modern controllers are, and you're going to pay $80 for the privilege of it. So what's your alternative, folks? You know, what choices do you have? Go get one of those little crappy Gravis pads with the screw-in joystick for $9. You know, that basically one of the buttons works in a DOS emulator and two of the buttons work in Windows unless you do some weird freaky configuration. That's no answer. You know, if someone came to me and said, okay, Shane, barring buying a hot rod, barring, you know, barring buying an $80 controller, you know, and even those aren't any solution half the time. A lot of these controllers are very uncomfortable. If I could pick in the past the most comfortable, easy to use, versatile controller of all time, what would I pick? Well, you know, the 2600 controller has a lot of good aesthetic value, you know. It's something everyone's used to, everyone's used it in the past. You know, but there's one button. It's kind of stiff, you know. Even if you could plug one into your PC, would you want to? Nah. You can scratch Intellivision and ColecoVision controllers off the face of the earth as far as I'm concerned. What does that leave? 5200 paddles? Sorry, I needed that laugh just for me. 7800 now. What else we got? Some of the exotic controls for the C64? No. Genesis controller? Nah, that was uncomfortable. You know, when you think about it, the only real good controller that's ever really come out that everybody seems to agree with, PlayStation 1 controller. It was so good they didn't even bother modifying the thing for the PlayStation 2. They say it ain't broke, let's not fix it. And well, I think they added like one more analog control on it, but they didn't break the design. You know, it's pretty much the same thing. Now, for those of us with big old fat paws, the PlayStation controller is a little small. But it's not too bad. It's comfortable. You can get to all the buttons. You can do what you want to do. And I was thinking to myself the other day, you know, because I'm a big Dreamcast fan. I'd love to be able to slam my Dreamcast controller into the PC. That'd be cool. And I was talking to some folks, and they said, yeah, they've got a PlayStation controller plugged into their PC. And I remember, I don't know, a year and a half ago, somebody came up and said, yeah, you know, there's a PlayStation controller adapter for the PC. I said, oh, really? That sounds cool. And they said, yeah, you know, it plugs into your parallel port. I'm going, oh, God, no. You got to put a 9-volt battery. You got to plug a 9-volt battery into it if you want rumble, you know, if you want the vibration thing to work. The dual shock thing, I'm going, this sucks. Right? So I ended up picking one up anyway, just to try it out. And I'll tell you what, running a controller on the parallel port, piss poor idea, folks. Nice thought. They were on the right track, but a piss poor idea. Well, recently I was talking to a friend of mine who runs this nice little import store that picks up all this cool hardware from, you know, Japan, Hong Kong, and he imports it and sells it over here. His name's Jandaman, And you can get to his site at jandaman.com, and of course there'll be a link on the page for you to go to it. He sells a lot of this import stuff that allows you to plug in hardware from consoles onto your PC. Things like memory card readers. You know, if you ever wanted to swap a memory card out or move files around, you can do stuff like that. But this review is about this cool little deal called the Kiki Joy. Now, if you can't tell that's Japanese or Asian, you know, I don't know a lot about Japan and Asia, I'll be perfectly honest with you. The Kiki Joy screams that it came as a pack-in with Choo Choo Rocket or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, who cares about the name, though? Does the Kiki Joy perform? Well, what the Kiki Joy is this little piece of plastic with a little plug for a PlayStation controller on one end, a nice, decently length cable, thank God. I don't understand why people think we need 1 foot of cabling for things. Good length of cable, and it goes to a USB plug. You're thinking, ooh, USB. Very clever. So, USB, I have a hub. It's right there in the front. Plug it in, and it works. What do you mean? I don't have to put a driver in? I don't have to sell my soul to Satan to make it work? No! This is so cool, folks. I took the Kiki Joy out of the box, and it had a CD with it. I'm thinking, okay, driver. I plug the Kiki Joy in. I get this little indicator that a USB item has been added. I plug the PlayStation controller into it. The analog light lights up. I go to the game controls in the control panel. It's there. You know what? Here, this is amazing, folks. I didn't even have to calibrate it. It was ready to roll after I plugged it in. I about fell over dead. You know, once I came to, I went ahead and started trying it with some of my favorite games. First thing, Robotron with a DualShock controller, folks. 2 joysticks on that puppy. And I'll tell you what, the controls are a little loose, you know, for those of us who are used to manhandling a Robotron machine. But it works. And it works good. It's responsive. You can run around with 2 thumb controls right off the DualShock analog control. It's beautiful. For those of you who can't handle that loose feeling, the buttons on the PlayStation analog controller are actually placed up, down, left, and right, not that weird, freaky 25-degree along a line unequally spaced like the Sidewinder controller. They're actually positioned to where you can actually play Robotron with buttons, like the console emulators do. Like the Midway Classics for the Dreamcast, things like that. You use the 4 buttons to fire, and then the D-pad to move. Worked great. I'm in paradise, right? Then I think, okay, well, let's go in and see how many buttons we actually have. We all know how these adapter things work, right? With no driver, you get 2 buttons and a controller. That's all you get. So I went in, and I'll be damned if all 12 buttons weren't accessible right from the game controller panel. All 12 buttons, folks. And for those of you who are freaking out over the math, there's 4 buttons on top, 4 buttons on the right, and both of the analog controls can be pushed in to activate a button, as well as the select and start. All 12 buttons, folks. I actually have select as coin up and start as one player start in main. It's fabulous. No drivers. No freaky configuration utility running in the background. It's flawless. And I thought to myself, damn it, this is something I've got to share with the Retro Gaming Radio community. People would love this stuff, you know? No, it doesn't get any easier than this. You plug it in and it works. When's the last time you had anything on a PC you plug it in and it works? Right? Last time I had that was on the Amiga. I could plug something in and it worked. Not on the PC. Now without drivers out the yin-yang, this worked and it worked well. And that sort of thing deserves promotion and voice on Retro Gaming Radio. Again, the site is jandaman.com, jandaman.com. You can get all sorts of cool stuff there, including the Kiki Joy. They have all sorts of other cool stuff there, too. My order came quickly. They've got all sorts of other cool stuff. If you want to use an N64 controller, heaven forbid, on your PC, they got them. If you want to be able to rip your memory cards down to the PC and, you know, tweak them or copy them from card to card, you can do it. They've got stuff here for that. Looking for mod chips, multi-taps, all that stuff, they've got it here. Prices are very fair. The guy does good tech support, and at least for those of you who are running Win2K, WinXP, you're not going to need a driver for this. Now, the CD does have a driver utility with it. It's not AOL, folks. It's not going to say you've got drivers when you put the disc in. It assumes you have some sort of knowledge of your computer. I imagine this is for the Win90 9X generation. But the NT and the XP people, I think you're all set. You plug this guy in, it works. As last time I checked, I think it was $14.95, folks. If you look at that and go out and buy a brand new DualShock controller, I think, what's that, $18, right? You throw this on for $14, $15. You're still looking at a $35 controller, not an $80 controller, $120 controller. How do these people sleep at night? And for those of you who are wondering, yes, the DualShock, the force feedback in the controller, apparently works according to the site. Now, I didn't have any force feedback games to try it with, but I'm assured that it works. So, when's the last time you saw a vibration-compatible controller for the PC for $30? One that's good quality, too. These PlayStation controllers, folks, these are designed to have the crap beaten out of them, not like this cheap, flimsy plastic crap you get today. This is good people controller here, folks. So if you're in the mood to try something different, if you're in the mood to get a controller that doesn't suck, if you're in the mood to be able to tap the extra PlayStation controller you probably have connected to your PlayStation sitting in the closet right now, not doing anybody any good, consider picking up the Kiki Joy. That's K-I-K-I Joy. I'll tell you, stuff cracks me up, some of the names I come up with. Well, folks, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Retro Gaming Radio. I'd just like to say to my old listeners, the old school guys, thanks for sticking with us. We've been through thick and thin, richer and poorer, and you guys are still here, and you can't put a price tag on that sort of thing. Thank you. For our new listeners, those of you who've been with us the last couple episodes, welcome to the party. That's all I can tell you. Retro Gaming Radio is like a party every month. And come CGE, we're all going to party. Which reminds me, Classic Gaming Expo is the E3 of classic gaming. CGExpo.com is the website. We're going to be there, and you're going to want to party with us. So make plans. It's in Las Vegas. It'll be the latter part of August. Check the site for more details. As we hear more, hopefully we're hoping for a good rapport with CGE, and we're hoping that they're going to give us some nice little interesting bits about who their visitors are going to be, who their alumni are going to be, and hopefully we can bring you full coverage of that come August. So support CGE. That's all I can tell you about that. Brian, is there anything you want to add to the end of the show?
All I want to say is that it's been a pleasure working on my first episode of Retro Gaming Radio, and I'm really hoping to hear from everybody out there who are listening to the show. Give me some feedback on what you think and what you would like to hear in future episodes of the show.
Anyway, folks, keep those letters coming. Keep the letters coming. We're going to read them on the air. We really appreciate it. Your letters keep us going. We've got new interviews coming next month. Very exciting. Stick with us. That's all I can say. For those of you who don't know, all the archives are online. So go and listen to all the last 3 years of Retro Gaming Radio. I think you'll have a good time. That's going to wrap it up. This is Shane R. Monroe from Retro Gaming Radio saying until next time, keep it retro.